You're listening to The Western Rookie, a hunting podcast full of tips, tricks, and strategies from seasoned Western hunters. There are plenty of opportunities out there. We just need to learn how to take on the challenges.
Hunting is completely different up there.
I've harvested 26 big game animals.
You can fool their eyes, but you can't fool their nose.
300 yards back to the road turned into 3 miles back the other way.
It's always cool seeing new hunters go and harvest an animal.
I don't know what to expect.
If there's anybody I want in the woods with me, it'll be you.
Welcome back to another episode of the Western Rookie podcast brought to you by GOHUNT. I'm here with Ian Radcliffe, and Ian reached out to me earlier a couple weeks ago and mentioned that he's been getting more and more into Western hunting, and since that's kind of the theme of the podcast, you know, he's from Wisconsin, I'm from Minnesota, but a lot of it's about Midwesterners starting to get out west. I thought it'd be a great episode to have Ian on here and chat with him about what it's like getting into it from, you know, kind of a, you know, not growing up with Western hunting and what he's thinking about doing in the future. So glad to have you here, Ian. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. It's good to be on. Always love talking Western hunting, so should be a good time.
So you're a part of the Project Whitetail team. So big avid whitetail hunter. Do you stick to Wisconsin or do you travel all over the United States whitetail hunting?
I've mostly just hunted Wisconsin, but I recently just got into some public land in Minnesota and Illinois. But a lot of my buddies go up to North Dakota and whatnot. But yeah, it's mostly Wisconsin and Minnesota for me.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, had a buddy that did Wisconsin public once and had a blast. Obviously, there's a ton of publics around me here in Minnesota. But I've typically only whitetail hunted North Dakota, Minnesota when I was a resident of North Dakota, you know. But like yourself, started Western hunting, well, after college for me. And it's just been like a blast. It's something different about going from tree stand hunting whitetails to just this huge open area and you just go wherever you want to go.
Oh yeah, it's a whole nother ball game. I love you're always on the move. Whereas whitetail hunting, obviously, it's almost always tree stand. But yeah, it's fun. I'm addicted.
Yeah. When did you start going out west? Like, how many Western hunts have you gone on?
So it started, 3 years ago. I went to Colorado and did a private land archery elk hunt with my stepdad, and we weren't successful, but we had some close encounters, and he actually shot a bear off of a water hole in that trip. So that was a pretty cool experience, but that was kind of what kicked things off for me in the Western game. And, you know, I started applying for points and whatnot with all my buddies, and just kind of ballooned from there.
So are the people that you're going out west with the same group of buddies that you like whitetail hunt with back home? Or did you have to find a new group?
Yeah, they're all college buddies. Most from Minnesota. We all went to Duluth, UND together. So we usually have a group of about 6 guys that, you know, go out, and we'll go out and hunt in pairs for the most part. But there's about usually 6 of us, you know, all from college that go out and hunt together.
Okay, so you did the Colorado archery elk with your dad. You've done at least a rifle mule deer hunt. How many tags have you had in the West so far?
So we started mostly with South Dakota, because before they went to the draw system that they have now, it was over-the-counter antelope, and you could basically apply every year for deer and get deer every year. So we started doing that 2 years ago, and we went did antelope 2 years in a row in South Dakota, and did mule deer 2 years in a row. So yeah, it mostly started with South Dakota, and then once we got enough points for Montana, this year we finally drew Montana and were able to go out there and chase some elk and deer too.
Oh, nice. Nice. And it looks like you guys do a little bit of shed hunting in the West as well.
A little bit, yeah. We usually try to make one trip out there. You know, it's tough to make a weekend trip going all the way out to Montana or Colorado, so we generally just go to South Dakota. But
Yeah.
we've had some good success actually in South Dakota. It was weird actually. The one year, I think it was 2 years ago, my buddies found a fresh elk set in like central South Dakota where there's not supposed to be any elk.
Well, they're there.
But I mean, it was weird, but
I've seen a couple of them in central South Dakota. I
Really?
shed hunt in South Dakota a lot. I haven't found any elk sheds, but they're there. I mean, there's the place we go. There's trail camera pictures of elk sheds, and so they're
Okay,
around
yeah.
for sure.
yeah,
Not common.
yeah, low densities, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, that was pretty cool, but I'd definitely like to go out and do like a 3-day shed hunt in Colorado, Montana. That'd be sweet.
Yeah, that would be epic. So I'm curious, what's been the biggest difference between just how you hunt when you were getting into South Dakota, coming from I'm assuming like a very heavy tree stand, sladdle, stationary whitetail hunting experience where you have your spot, you plan it out all year, you trim your lanes, maybe plant your food plots, and you really are banking on this deer coming to you, and that all goes out the window when you go out west. So like, what was that first couple hunts like for you?
I'll tell you what, we did not know what we were doing the first couple of years there. Those first couple of hunts were tough. It was basically just getting out there to learn. We had quite a few encounters that we probably should have walked away with an animal, but just didn't know what we were doing, But I don't know. Just the biggest thing is going from tree stand hunting. You're always sitting there, and you kind of have if you have a private farm to hunt like I do, you can pattern deer a little bit. Whereas out there, it's like it just kind of seems like you're almost just randomly looking for a deer. You're not chasing a single deer, right? So it's the whole spot and stock thing was a little bit of a learning curve for us.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think one thing that us whitetail hunters are have, like the tool in our toolbox, or like the skill set is sitting in one spot and glassing, which is key to like mule deer hunting or spot and stock. Anything really with a rifle is time behind the glass. And a lot of people in the West sometimes don't like that, because the whole point of them hunting the West is getting out and exploring the country, checking what's on the other side of this mountain and just burning boot leather. And a lot of times when you just sit and glass and really pick apart a piece of like the landscape, you can start finding things that you didn't see when you just scanned it with your binoculars. And, us whitetail hunters, we're used to sitting in one tree for an entire day, in the rut, especially like sun up to sundown in one tree stand, like not even moving a foot. And so that's something that I've found really helps, because I could sit in glass all day long. Like, it's nice. The sun's hitting you, you're laying out, you got a spotter, you can lay down, lean up against the mountain. So I think that's one thing that definitely helps us when we go out to the West, is just, especially if you like have good glass.
Yeah, and I mean, another thing that was real tricky for us when we first started was just knowing where to hunt. I mean, yeah, you can e-scout as much as you want, but until you get out there and really see the terrain and what it's like, in person, it's tough to know whether a spot's going to be good or not.
So that
was tough.
That's a good question. So, how did you guys go about? I mean, I get South Dakota can be nice, just like geographically it's closer to Wisconsin, so it makes good sense to go there for like a deer and antelope hunt. But aside from like picking the state, like what did you go through when you're starting to like figure out like what tag to apply for, what unit, where you're going to camp? Like, how did all that work out for? Well, let's back up one step. Did anybody in your group that you hunt with today was any of them going out west before you guys all started, or was it all of you are going out for the first time together?
Yeah, there was a few guys, 2 or 3 guys that had gone out. I think probably the previous 2 years before I started going out to
Okay.
South Dakota for mostly. I think it was mostly deer. I think they might have went antelope 1 year too, but so they kind of knew, I guess, the general vicinity of where to go, but they were still pretty green into things and then still were learning a lot. So
Okay, right. So then, so some people had a little bit of experience, but most people are relatively new. So how does it go through like picking a spot now? Like, what did you think about? Like, did you guys use any tools? Were you using like the GOHUNT Insider service to like break down units and stuff like that?
no, actually, we primarily used Onyx for our e-scouting, and just this year, we went ahead and bought the GOHUNT Insider. So I haven't dove too deep into it, honestly. But when we first started, we just went into each state's regulations and draws, and went on each website and tried to figure it out, which is not easy.
Oh,
as I'm sure
no.
you know.
No,
So-
I mean, I've been doing it for 8 years now, and I mean, you are gonna love GOHUNT. If you
Yeah.
are used to like going to South Dakota's website and finding their like lottery results and looking through this PDF to find like units and figure out, where they are on a map and all that stuff, man, you are gonna love GOHUNT. I mean, I use it. I haven't drawn a single tag in the West that I didn't use GOHUNT to scout, to plan, figure out what the odds were. I mean, it's made a night and day difference in like how our group picks spots.
Yeah, we started like a Google Sheets spreadsheet to try to track when all the application deadlines were, and when all the preference points were due and all that stuff. But yeah, it gets to be a lot when you're applying for 4 different states and with 4 different species in each state.
Yeah, it does. And, that's one of the reasons why, I don't know if you've seen recently, but we just started a new series that GOHUNT's actually the title sponsor of the whole podcast, but also this bonus series. And it's, we're going to call it something like, Get a Tag, or the GOHUNT application strategy. It's a bonus series, but we release an episode like 7 days before every deadline.
Okay.
So that way people like remember. So like, for example, the South Dakota point deadline was 4 days ago. I'm sure you know.
Yeah.
But December 15th, that's your deadline to buy a point for 2023 and use it, in the spring lottery. And so there's so many deadlines. We built out like a full, between applications and point deadlines, it's like a full 18 episode series in the spring and a couple in the fall with Montana and Wyoming point deadlines. It's crazy. Like, who's going to remember all that?
Yeah, definitely. It's it's tough. Yeah, I've missed a couple points, unfortunately. Just completely forgot to apply.
And
It's
doesn't
tough
that
to keep
just
track of
like,
all of them.
when you realize a week later that you missed it, it like wrecks your whole week.
It does, yeah. And yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I thought I had applied, and so I kind of just forgot about it, and then went back a month later and checked my points. I was like, oh, crap, I didn't even apply.
So what states are you guys building points in? So you hunt South Dakota quite a bit. I'm sure you got like a favorite spot that you go back to year in and year out when you have that tag. But what are the other states that you're mixing in?
We're mostly doing Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado.
Okay.
So those 3 states besides South Dakota.
Mm.
I mean, it seems like those are kind of the top 3 for Midwesterners, to get opportunities in the near future, I should say.
Yeah, I would say those are your core 3 states that I would recommend anyone building points in if they want to start hunting the West. So they are all like Rocky Mountain states, right? I would kind of count like the Dakotas, Nebraska, Kansas as like the Front Range states. I mean, it's the Front Range is like the way over in Colorado, but you have like, your Mississippi whitetail states, Then you have these like transition states where the east side is like
Yeah.
still like river bottom whitetails, but the west side's usually like mule deer and broken country and hills like South Dakota.
Exactly.
Those are like, if you want to apply, great, go for it. Usually the elk hunting, I don't think there's any non-resident elk hunting opportunity in any of those 4 states. So if you want to do antelope or mule deer, they could be good options. But if you're looking at elk, you got to go to that next tier over, which is Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, and then New Mexico. But here's the kicker, you know, New Mexico is random, so you can't plan on it.
Yep, exactly.
And it's expensive. You gotta front that tag price, and a lot of times they don't have as many apps as you want to go for. Like if you have 6 people in your group, there might not be a lot of units with 6 non-resident tags.
Right. Yeah. Do they do group apps or no?
They do some group apps. I can't remember. There's certain states, and I don't know which ones they are yet, and the New Mexico bonus series hasn't come up yet, so I haven't done a ton of research into this specifically. But some states, if you apply, let's say there's 5 tags, and you apply as a group of 6. If you apply, they will give all 6 of you the tag, but then the tags are gone. So even if you're like the 5th, the 5th number they pull, and it's a group of 6, they'll give every one of you a tag, and so technically that year they'd issue 10 tags, but then that's done. Other states, if there's 5 tags and you apply as a 6, even if you get drawn on the first pull, they'll be like, nope, not enough tags, and they throw you out. So that if you apply for that unit, you're just wasting your whole application. And so I don't know which way it works for New Mexico, but either way, you can't plan on it. It's early, so you have to front that $1,200, and then you're returning a tag if you draw twice. Arizona, kind of that same thing, non-resident, not a ton of tags. It takes mid-tier points to get anything that is really exciting to hunt. There's some units where you can draw a few times, but probably not as a group of 6. And then, Nevada, Utah, super long for like the elk and the deer. And Idaho, you can't do a group app. So you're starting to really whittle away your options. And I'm sure if you're looking for like close range options, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Nevada, Oregon, Washington, like those are all 3-day drives for someone in Wisconsin.
Yeah, those are all a little too far.
Right.
That's me.
And so that's where I really just recommend, especially for elk hunting, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming. You're going to get Wyoming every 4 years or so. You're going to get Montana every other for now, maybe every 2
years
soon.
for now.
Yeah. You can't apply as a group of 6, which sucks. It's max 5, so then you guys are going to have to roll the dice and go with 2 groups of 3. And then Colorado, you build points, but then when you can't draw Wyoming or Montana, you find an over-the-counter backup option. And that way you're guaranteed to elk hunt every year.
Yeah, we've talked about Idaho a few times, and I know they have, that first come, first serve, draw on December 1st and everything. We just haven't had a year where we needed to do it yet, but it's definitely on our radar. If, say we don't draw Montana or Wyoming and we don't want to go to Colorado, that's definitely an option.
Well, I hate bursting bubbles, but I really don't think it's an option for you. So first of all, the first come, first serve, 90% of the tags are gone on December 1st. So, you're 2 months ahead of even any of the apps of any of the other states. Wyoming's is in January, Montana's is in April, Colorado's is in May. So you get, by the time you have to like hard pick Idaho before you even apply to any of the others.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant. Like if you knew you weren't going to draw Montana, but then you'd only have 1 point with 25%.
But then here's the kicker. They don't allow groups in Idaho. So all 6 of you have to call in. We just did this episode, so I'm freshly educated on it. I did all this research. And so you have to call in at 9:30 a.m., somewhere between 9:30 and 10. And you get put in this lobby. And everyone's in an equal place. All the non-residents are in an equal spot. And then at 10 o'clock, everyone that's already in the lobby gets assigned a random number. So you could be first. You could call in at 9:59 and be first. You could call it in at 9:30 and be 15,000th. And once at 10, whoever's first gets to start picking. and you're just in line like the DMV waiting for your number, right? And so if you call in after 10, you get automatically put the end of the line, so you're really not getting a tag anyway. And so what happens is all 6 of you could call in, and like Ian, you could be 52nd. You're like, great, I'm super good. Like, but the unit you want to go to only has 30 non-resident tags, and all 5 of your partners are like 270th, 1152, 3760, and so they're by you might get that tag, and maybe your second guy gets the tag, but 3, 4, 5, and 6 they're out. I mean, the tags are all sold out by the time their number comes up, and so it's just not. Maybe if you had 2 people,
I think if we were to do Idaho, we'd just do like the pairs, because we hunt in pairs anyways.
the same 2
so
all the time.
Yeah, it's always the same 2. I'm always hunting with
Yeah.
my buddy Brucey for the most part. So yeah, I
That
think
can
that would
work.
have to be. Yeah, that would have to be the case for Idaho.
You could try it. It would. I think I've thought through this a lot, because we have the same issue. Like, it's like, man, we don't really feel great about over-the-counter Colorado, but Idaho is not good
Yeah.
either. And so we've thought about it, and the way I've kind of thought about it is like, you both get your random number, and you just see like how close are you 2 together, right? And
Yep.
if you're like 50 tags apart, when your first guy comes up and it's his turn, you just look at units that are, have ideally at least 50 tags, or at least enough where you're like, I think we'll be fine. Like if there's, 25 tags left in your unit and there's only
Right.
50 between you 2, like there's a good chance that'll be there. But then you really have to research like all the units, because the ones that are going to have the most tags left are going to be the worst units.
Right. Yeah.
So you don't want to just be like, oh, this tag's got 300 tags, or this unit's got 300 tags left. Let's get one. And they're like, yeah, there's 2 elk in this unit, and they're always in the park.
Right.
So I don't know. It's Idaho. I wish they came out with a way. And the easiest way to do it would be all 6 of your guys have to sign in ahead of time, and you get this like group number, right?
That would be nice.
And then you guys, whoever, your names go in as one. So when you get a random number, you get one random number for your whole group. So it's like,
Yep.
Group number 50, like your group's number 52, and you have like a 52-1, -2, -3, 4, 5, and 6. So like you pick your buddy, your next guy, your next guy, your next guy. All 6 of you pick at the same time. So like, oh, now we just need to find units that have 6 tags. And you might be 3,000th, and then maybe there isn't any units left with 6 tags. But at least that would give an option for a group app.
Yep. Oh, for sure. That'd be way nicer.
Yeah. That would really help. I mean, there's so many things. I like one thing about Idaho is that they don't have a point system. I really do like that, because like certain units, you mathematically, if you're born today, you'll never hunt.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I just hate that about the West. But yeah, I think the 3 states you guys are building points in are by far the 3 most important. Like, you can always choose to add more if you want. South Dakota, North Dakota, Kansas, Nebraska, all these other states, Arizona. You can always throw in random apps for New Mexico, but I think the 3 you got are like the 3 bulletproof ones, where at least you're going to get something.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I even looked into Utah this fall, because I was working out there on a project. I worked in construction, but I was working out there this fall, and I looked into the Utah tags, and there's some over-the-counter tags, but they're in terrible units where you're not going to get an opportunity, I guess is what I kind of found.
For deer or elk?
For elk. But a lot of them
Yeah.
were either just spike tags, or antlerless, and yeah. But
Yeah, the spike, there's a lot of spike only over the counters, but those are in some of the best units. And so you're going to be like in a bugle fest and passing nice bulls and probably seeing a lot of elk. You just got
Yeah.
to shoot the spike. But for me, so to put it in perspective, like I would love to like advise people, like don't let that hold you back, like the spike only. Because being realistic, let's say you go to Colorado over the counter, or somewhere that you can shoot a spike. A lot of places you can't. Wyoming is one place I think you can. your first elk hunt, you get a spike that walks out at 20 yards, you're gonna shoot it?
Oh yeah, I would. I mean,
So that's a lot of people would, right? And so it's like, well, if you would shoot a spike, go do the spike only hunt. You're gonna have a great elk hunt. You're gonna probably bugle in a couple 300-inch bulls, or the antlerless. Like, we've had at least 5 years of 8 tags and probably 3-4 years of 4 tags in our group. I mean, we're probably pushing 75 tags on elk, archery elk, and we've shot 10, 11 bulls, I think. So, the chances are you're not shooting an elk for a few years when you're with your bow. I mean, it's only a 10% success rate, roughly. So, yeah, a lot of people, unfortunately, are like, oh, I don't want to do an antlerless only, or I don't want to do a spike hunt. But I'm like, you would have shot that elk on your other unit. So why not get the easy tag? Like, it's there. It's over the counter. You're going to have a great time. You can bank on going. You can get familiar with a unit. Like, I think there's a lot of great opportunity in some of those places.
Especially if you're going to be in a bugle fest. I mean, it's that in itself is worth going, because I mean, just learning like the elk environment and how they behave and how to hunt them there's something to say about that in itself. That was really all we wanted out of our Montana hunt this year, being our first archery elk hunt, and we sure got it.
Just to hear some bugles.
Oh yeah, it was an absolute bugle fest. It was awesome.
So did you guys, so this was the first elk hunt, right, that you guys went on?
Yeah, besides my private land Colorado hunt. Actually, no, I take that back. 2 of the guys went to Colorado last year over the counter, and they hunted 7 days and heard 2 bugles and didn't see a single elk.
Yeah, that's rough. We did Colorado. We had a little bit better luck, but not a terrible amount. But yeah, I was just curious. So obviously with the rifle mule deer, it's a glassing game. You find them, you go get close, you shoot them. With the archery elk, completely different tactics. Like, you don't really glass. In most places, you're not really glassing. You're looking for fresh sign, doing the calling. So did you guys have to all learn how to call, or how did that work?
Yeah, there was basically one good caller in each pair. Like my buddy and I both learned, but a few of the other guys just had one guy in the group that could call. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it was we were hunting thick timber, so it was. I mean, we probably didn't even need our binoculars, to be honest with you. Definitely didn't bring our spotting scopes.
Yeah, I find it hard to hunt really anything without my binoculars.
Yeah, I mean, even in the thick timber, there was times where, like, I'd pull them up, as you're getting closer, like within a couple 100 yards. But
yeah,
there's just spots where you just can't even see past 10 yards in there.
Yeah, I mean, you're not glassing anything there, but like, yeah, you're like, is that a patch of fur out there? And you know, it never is, but
right.
I don't know. I would feel like I'm naked if I was running around without my bino harness. But my bino harness also has my rangefinder, my scent checker, face paint, all my calls, a lighter. I got a lot of stuff in my bino harness. And my tags. So everything I really need to kill an elk legally, it's in my bino harness. So I can drop my pack and still be legal.
Exactly. Yeah. So do you carry bear spray and a pistol?
Depends on where we're hunting.
Sure.
So we've hunted different levels of grizzly country. Like Montana, like 3/4 of the state, they would say like be prepared to have a grizzly encounter. But if we were, hunting around some place where there really isn't grizzly bears, I'd probably carry spray.
Yeah.
But we've hunted some places that, like one place we hunted, 4 people got mauled in the valley we were in the week we were there.
That is nuts.
It's like a big mountain range, and 4 people, one of them got mauled pretty much where we shot an elk. One of our guys shot an elk, like, first night, a mile up this one certain creek, and as we were driving home, we looked at a gas station newspaper, and it's like, man was mauled by a bear 1 mile up this creek. And we're like, hey, Ben, isn't that where you shot your bull? And he's like, yeah, pretty much exactly. we're like, ooh, that's not good.
I think I heard that was Montana. I think I heard about this.
Yeah, Montana.
Yeah.
A few years back,
Yeah.
there was an issue with a certain flower was like in bloom, and it was toxic to cattle.
Yep, I heard. This is exactly the story I heard. Yeah.
And my brother knows the name of the plant, but it killed like an entire herd, and then every grizzly bear within like 30 miles showed up to this mountain, and so they closed hunting on the backside of the mountain, and so we were hunting the other side. But we saw 2 grizzlies that year. One of them was like 300 yards from camp. So in that spot, I would carry bear spray on my bino harness, and I carry a 10 mil, the Glock 20, like a double stack 10 mil. I carry that usually on a drop leg holster. So either way, if I drop my pack, I still have both.
That's the same with me. Yep, I had spray on my bino harness and my pistol on my hip belt and pack. Yep.
Yeah, the only difference I would say is like the hip belt on the pack. Obviously, it's really nice and easy to carry. You don't notice the weight. But for whatever reason, you're eating lunch, you're going to take a leak, you're not wearing your pack, then you don't have half your system, which
Yep.
some people are aware of. You know, some people are like, I don't care, that's fine. I just chose to put it on a drop leg holster, and I barely noticed it there either. Especially with like a good leather belt, like something that you can like really cinch down. And that way you just have it all the time.
Yeah, so when we first started e-scouting Montana earlier this year, we were kind of looking at a few spots in higher grizzly areas, and that we kind of scouted those areas all summer long. E-scouted, should say, and they got to be about, I don't know, 3 weeks or 2 weeks before our hunt, and I don't remember who it was in our group, but someone finally brought up like, you guys realize like this is a pretty high density grizzly area, and there was actually a part of a national park that got shut down because of a mauling like that week, and we kind of completely changed gears and went to a completely different spot with lower density, just because it was our first elk hunt. We wanted to learn how to hunt elk, not worry about grizzlies, right?
Yeah, it's different when you hunt grizzly country. I mean, the first elk hunt I ever went on was in one of these areas that's like not really grizzly country. Like there's some, but it's not. You know, the grizzlies are really located outside of the national parks. Like there's a couple different like ecosystems, like the glacier, the larger glacier and the larger Yellowstone ecosystem. Those are really the hot spots for grizzlies. And so if you're like anywhere in between, like there certainly could be a bear, but probably it's going to be a black bear. And so that year I just had spray. And the mistake I made was I watched the Night of the Grizzlies documentary on the Discovery Channel like 2 nights before we went on this elk hunt. And it's about how like 5 people got mauled in the same night, like just absolutely shredded. Back in like the 60s or 70s, because they didn't understand how bad these bears could be, and they were feeding them and baiting them, and baiting them right behind camp. But then there's somebody tenting like 200 feet away from the bait station, and all of a sudden it just boomed. Like it just, for some reason on a certain night, it's probably the moon phase or whatever. Now like a whitetail hunter would be like, oh, the moon phase and the pressure. But yeah, like 4 people got mauled, just obliterated in the same night. And I was watching that, and we were hunting not too far away from where that happened. And yeah, I was like freaking out that trip. But, when we're hunting the hot grizzly country, we do adjust how we hunt a little bit. Like we're not going 2 hours in before light, in the dark. Usually if we're not on something hot, we're working our way back to the trailhead and trying to hit the trailhead, at dark, or at least not too far after. If we're shooting a bull, like one person's working, one person's watching. At least one person's watching. So if we hunt in groups of 3, usually we'll hunt in groups of 3 then. So that way you can like 2 people work, one person watches. But yeah, you do hunt a little different, and you behave different. Like when you got to take a leak in the middle of the night, you think twice about, do I really have to go, or should I just wait till morning?
No doubt.
Or like we had little campers, not a camper, but like a trailer. we had a cabin and a trailer. So I was sleeping in the trailer, and the trailer had this window like this big in the door. And so when I had to take a leak in the middle of the night, I was looking everywhere I could out of that little window, with the moonlight, trying to figure out. And the real problem was going number 2, because the outhouse was like 50 feet through the woods. Like, you had to go through the real woods. And that was towards where we saw the bear one night, 300 yards away. So yeah, that night you made sure you got your business done and you didn't have to make any midnight runs.
It's pretty easy to freak yourself out too. I mean, I remember the one time my buddy went and filled up our water bladders, and as he was coming back, I could hear him. I didn't know it was him at the time, but I could hear something coming through the woods. I was kind of up on this ridge glassing, and I was like, yelling and whatnot, and didn't hear him yell back. And I was like, oh shit, I wonder if this is a freaking grizzly. And I was, just freaked myself out, and ended up just being my buddy, and he couldn't hear me because he was trudging through the woods. But yeah, it's pretty easy to freak yourself out.
Yeah. Fortunately, we've never had a real up close encounter with a grizzly bear, but it's a topic, and we're debating, like, some of our best units in Montana are in the hotbeds of grizzly country. And so we're kind of thinking, like, we've tried a couple other units with mixed results, and now we're like, all right, where do we want to go? And the units we shoot the most elk are the units with the most grizzly bears, and half of our group's like, let's do it, and the other half of our group's like, I don't want to hunt grizzly country anymore. And so we're kind of going through that right now.
Yeah, I feel like if you really are getting into Western hunting, it's bound to happen eventually, right? Like you're hunting grizzly country, it's bound to happen eventually where you have some sort of run-in with the grizzly. But I think when you're first starting, it's definitely, I don't know, I like not being able, not having to worry about that, when you're first starting. Just try to learn how to hunt elk, before worrying about grizzlies. And maybe when we get a little more experience, and start going deeper into that grizzly country.
Yeah, I mean, there's levels to Western hunting that I think a lot of people, maybe don't realize right away. And I think it's because the whitetail version of hunting, like, there's levels to whitetail hunting for sure. There's a difference between private land with food plots and public land and, out of state, but it's typically the same skill set. Like, if you're a public land hunter, it's the same skill set you can apply to any state. You get a hotel room, or you camp, you go out, you hunt, you come home to the camp, and it's rinse and repeat. You know how to climb a tree, or you don't. You know how to use a saddle, or you don't. You hunt from the ground, if you whitetail hunt at all, you can really just kind of apply those same things. Now, for example, I am terrible at hunting public land because I've had private land my whole life with food plots and architecture and, habitat work. And so, I'm good at that, and I'm good at seeing, like, how to lay out something. I'm really bad at trying to find whitetail sign on public with, big timber publics. But it's the same. Like, I can go out and hunt, and I'm not, like, nervous, right? Or I'm not, like, kicking myself, like, what am I doing here? It's like, I just didn't see a deer. It's fine. I've done it many times. I've seen some deer. I haven't seen some deer. But the difference with the West is there are levels, and there are skills that you just don't have. Like, can you make a fire without a Bic lighter? That's, like, that can make or break not only your hunt, but, like, a survivable situation. Can you backpack hunt? Like, do you know how to plan out a backpacking trip, the gear you need, the food you need, what kind of stove or cooking system you need, the weather protection, all that. Like, there's so many different levels. And a lot of times I hear people that they're like, yeah, I'm going to go on my first Western hunt. I'm going to do like a 14-dayer by myself solo. And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude. Like, I don't want to call your baby ugly, but I'll tell you right now, you ain't making it 14 days.
No
You're
way.
going to make it 3 days, and you're going to go back to town and get a hotel, or you're going to come home. Like, that's what's going to happen. Like, I'm not doubting your abilities. I'm just saying this is what's going to happen. And there's so many levels, and that's why I always tell people, like, it's okay to start early. Like, I really like how you guys did it. Start with some antelope hunts. Those are by far the most fun you'll have in the West.
Exactly.
There's no struggle. There's no grind. There's no
Terrain is a bit
uncomfort.
easier.
The terrain's easier. Like even if you're camping, the camping logistics are easier. The weather's typically fairer. Typically, you'd shoot an animal. That's easy. Like anybody can, take care of an antelope. But you like if you jump right into like backcountry backpacking solo elk, all of a sudden, yeah, you might be able to get 5 miles back. Can you survive there? Probably. But what happens when you shoot a bull by yourself 5 miles back on your first trip? I mean, there's just so many levels. And it's, I think Instagram kind of glamorizes the solo hardcore guy that goes and shoots a bull 10 miles back, but that's just not most people.
No, I would say there's no doubt that, doing those South Dakota archery, antelope, and deer hunts, that really helped us this fall on our first, archery elk hunt in Montana. Just to hone in your spot and stock skills, because, I mean, until I went out to South Dakota and started doing those antelope and deer hunts, I really didn't know how to spot and stock hunt. I mean, maybe a little bit turkey hunting, back in Wisconsin, but besides that, you just don't have that skill set. It's a whole different ball game. And it's just learning those spot and stock skill sets first before you get into something.
I mean, it's more
bigger.
so just practicing them, right? I mean, everyone kind of gets like, oh, I'm going to be sneaky. Well, if you've never done it before, it's hard. Like, it is hard to sneak up on an antelope.
Oh, yeah. If you want to get good at spot and stock hunting, go on an archery antelope hunt and don't hunt out of a blind over a water hole, because I think it's some of the hardest spot and stock hunting you can do, just because of the terrain they live in. I mean, it's nothing
flat.
to work with.
Yeah, it's flat. They don't bed down. You can't get good sneaks on them. I mean, antelope or mule deer, yeah, still very hard. By no means is it easy, but at least like you can put them to bed. You can sneak. You can make a big loop coming from the backside, downwind, whatever. And but the antelope, man, yeah, that's a tough one. That is really tough. And you apply those to everything. I mean, when you guys are antelope hunting, you're not like just surviving on an elk hunt. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm capable of doing this. I don't backcountry elk hunt. We day camp. So we pick a main camp. We go out for the day. We come back to that main camp. We've backpacked a day. Like this last year, we did one night on the mountain, and it was fine. But worst case, I could have got to the truck in an hour.
Okay, yeah.
We did it mostly for the vibe, just the sense of doing it. Because we've talked about it every year, like, oh, we should spike out this year, and we've never done it. And the guy that always wants to spike out wasn't on this trip. He was doing something else. And so we all spiked out and said, hey, we did it. But, I'm not trying to say that I do this. Like, I don't do this, and it's because of how hard it can be, especially solo, to do these, like, 10-day things that people think they're going to do. I'm like, that doesn't even sound fun. Like, I'm going to be honest. I don't want to do that. You could give me some of the best tags, and I'd be like, if you're not going to give me 2 tags, I don't want it, because I don't want to do that by myself. I'm going to be kicking myself mentally all day long, roller coaster of emotions. Like, it's a grind, and by yourself, it's brutal.
Oh yeah, it was. So we spike camped in Montana this year. That was the first time I've ever done anything like that. And yeah, like you said, just learning how to survive out there is one thing besides the hunting. I mean, learning your whole gear setup, how your tent sets up, what to bring for meals. It's a lot. But I tell you what, that was really fun. I mean, just getting out there, because we were able to get pretty far back. I think we were probably 4 or 5 miles back into the spot we were at, and that was really the sole reason why we got into so much elk, is because we got so far back off the road. But it's tough. It's no doubt.
So that was you and your buddy that did the spike, just the two of you, not all 6?
All 6 of us did it the same week, just in different areas.
And then
same unit, but different areas.
Do you share like a base camp? All 6 people have like one big base camp?
So we do for our other hunts. you know, our archery, mule deer hunts, or antelope.
Okay.
But you know, for this one, obviously we spike camped it back, and we're living in the backcountry for, I think it was 5 days. We packed 5 days of food and whatnot, and then it started raining on the 5th day, anyways. But yeah, I mean, it was kind of funny because we actually started like, I don't know, 7-8 miles apart at 2 different trailheads, and on the second to last day, we actually met up with the other 2 guys in our 6-person group. Like, they had just hiked really far and gotten really far off the trailhead. They were like 10 miles from the truck or something crazy.
Wow.
And
Call them in a setup then or something?
Yeah, they just kept getting on elk and kept moving to different spots, and we ended up running into them like way back in the back country. It was pretty wild. But
so I want to ask you, what did your gear setup look like for a 5-day spike? Because that's I would say that's even a big jump of going from like never spiking to doing a 5-day at once. Like, that's backpack hunting. I mean, unless you pick the same spike camp every night, but that's a big jump. So I'm just curious, like, what gear system did you guys use? Did you share any of the gear? And how did it work? How did it go?
yeah, there was a lot to buy, definitely, and a lot of stuff to add to our Western, you know, hunting gear arsenal for sure. We both had, you know, one person bivy tents. You know, you use your trekking poles to set up and everything.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I should just bring up the picture of my whole setup. But you know, obviously you got your trekking poles. I think we brought 5 freeze dried meals, and then, you know, 5 lunches, and then just like Cliff Bars for breakfast.
What were you eating
so
for
all your
lunch if it
food.
wasn't a freeze-dried meal?
It was just peanut butter tortilla, some trail mix, package of tuna, and there's something else I don't remember. But we just, you know, do a Ziploc bag lunch, you know, and had
Okay.
5 different Ziploc bags full of lunches. Yeah, what else? I mean, one thing we didn't bring that we need to definitely think about next time is rain gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a long commitment to trust the weather forecast in the mountains.
Yeah,
I mean,
and we got lucky, but
where we were in Colorado, it rained every day for
Really?
at least a half hour. I mean, sometimes you just head under a tree and call it good, but one day it rained for like 2.5 hours, and I had a rain fly that I set up, and that was phenomenal. Me and my buddy that I was hunting with just laid underneath it and took a nap, but we stayed bone dry the entire time.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's one thing we got to get. But
And it was
yeah, I
lighter
mean,
than rain gear.
Yeah, my tent, my 1-person tent is less than a pound, or I think it's 17 ounces, 1 pound, 1 ounce. So
But no
it's super
poles.
light. No poles. It's a bivvy.
Does it
style
have a
that uses
basement?
trekking-
Or not a
trekking
basement,
poles.
but does it have a floor? Like, or are you
Uh,
sleeping on grass?
No, it has a floor.
Okay.
It's just really, you know, thin, you know, nylon or synthetic material. So
And did you have a footprint with it?
no footprint. I just use I got a lightweight sleeping pad and a lightweight sleeping bag.
Sure.
So
Sure. Yeah. So you got the, and it's waterproof. The tent is waterproof.
well, somewhat. I mean,
Okay.
if it was a downpour, you wouldn't be looking good, because
Okay.
it's just that's why it's so lightweight. It's just a single layer, whereas a lot of them are, you know, 2 layers, and they have like the
Rain fly.
rain tarp or rain
Yeah.
fly. Yep.
Okay.
But that's why it was so lightweight. I tried to go as lightweight as possible with all my gear.
Well, that is so I'm guessing the tent's probably the most expensive piece of equipment, because when you start getting like 1 pound tents, they get pretty expensive.
It wasn't too bad, actually. It was, $250 or something like that.
Okay, but that's still like a big purchase for a hunt.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I'd say your bigger purchase items are your boots, which do not cheap out on boots. Your pack.
Yeah, but you already have those. Like a day hunter versus a spike hunter, he already has a good pair of boots, or should.
I did not have a really good pair of, like, I had a pair of Danners and that I use in South Dakota, and they're so, right? I mean,
what do you got
I had
now?
to upgrade Kenetrex.
Yeah.
I had to upgrade the boots. The Danners weren't going to do it.
I wore my
mountain country.
Kenetrex. I wear them every day. I never switch out. I never get blisters. My Kenetrex have been the best. So that's the sleep system. Did you just get like a normal backpacking 0 degree, 20 degree bag or something, like a mummy bag?
Yeah, 20 degree mummy. Yep.
Okay. And so you have a lightweight air pad, probably doesn't have the greatest R rating, like a Climate or something.
Yeah, it was, I don't know what the R rating was, but not the greatest, but super lightweight.
So how did it go? So you're in Montana archery season. I mean, we've had everything from 80 to 2 feet of snow. And so how did it go, like, with your sleeping system? Like, was it comfortable and warm? Would you have preferred to have a little bit more, or a little bit less weight, or, how'd that go over?
Actually, we had pretty good weather when we were there. It didn't get too cold at night. I mean, maybe down. The coldest was maybe like mid 30s, I'd say. It really didn't get too cold at night. But yeah, I mean, I would say if you were to go back, say November, and do a late season hunt and backpack like that, that's a different story. I'd definitely want like a 0 degree sleeping bag, and
I just
maybe,
don't think I would want to backpack in November.
I mean,
I've elk
know.
hunted
It would
in
be
November,
cool,
and it's
but-
awful.
Yeah, it would be cool, but like for our mule deer hunt this year, when we went back, we did day hunts only, and we just we actually we set up an ice hub. That's what we do. So
Yeah.
We kind of just drive way back and set up an ice hub and stay out of there for a week.
Yeah, the wind would be a little bit of a concern. You definitely want to stake that sucker down and
Yeah,
probably
we got
replace the
heavy-duty
ropes.
stakes.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then the ground's froze, so you gotta have like a drill or a hammer, and I hear you. It works. Buddy heaters, they go a long ways. If I was gonna backpack in that late of the season, I would definitely be doing like a teepee that I can set up a stove with, and backpack in one of those lightweight stoves, and spend some time doing some wood.
That's what we were talking about too. If we ever did do a late season backpack hunt, that'd be the way to do it. Lightweight teepee, lightweight stove.
Yeah, mule deer country also is more forgiving, and it can be a little bit than like up in the mountains or elk, but elk are usually coming down about November too, so that's okay. So this seems like the sleep system went well. How about like food and water? So you're bringing a water bladder and a water filter for that long of a trip. You had the freeze dried meals. Do you feel like you had enough food? Were you running out? And what did you use to like cook the food?
Yeah, I think we did pretty good on the food. It was my first time doing that, but my buddies had some experience, so we got some tips from them. But I mean, we basically just laid it all out, planned each day out, and did the same thing each day for breakfast and lunch, and then dinners we do the freeze dried meals. And my buddy's got a what are those little things called again?
Like a jet boil?
Jet boil. That's the
Okay.
word I was looking for. Yep, he's got a jet boil that he brings along, and makes freeze dried meals with that. And I tell you what, it's after like hiking 10 plus miles in the mountains the whole day, going up and down a couple thousand feet in elevation, having that warm freeze dried meal is that's killer. That's you definitely want those.
Well, and depending on what your freeze-dried meals you're bringing, some of them, that's the highest density calories per ounce you'll find. Peanut butter's right at about 150, bacon's about 120, cheese is about 120, trail mix is right at about 150. But if you get like Alpine Ranch is a brand that I like, it's a newer brand, but they're up to like 180 calories per ounce because you don't carry the water around with you. Everything else has got water. I mean, peanut butter's got a shit ton of water in it.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, so it's dense, but if you had like freeze-dried peanut butter, like you would be up at like 250 calories per ounce. You'd have to rehydrate it and it probably wouldn't taste that good, but yeah, that's the issue, right? It's weight versus calories that you're balancing. And so it sounds he carries the jet boil. Then did you carry the water filter? Because you really only need one of those per team of each of those things.
He actually carried both, actually, just because he had it was both of them were his, and
okay.
I don't know, my pack might have been a hair lighter.
So you just
But,
use like a MSR, like.
Yeah, it was heck was it called? It was a squeeze bottle, actually. I don't know if you've seen those before,
okay.
But
yeah.
it wasn't like one of those that you push, but it was a squeeze bottle. I forget the brand name of it.
Okay.
I have to look it up, but
it's just like a mini full. It's like a little like the pump on a little outboard motor, right? Like your little duck boat.
You basically just
squeeze that bulb and it pushes water through it.
Yeah, it pushes water through the filter. Yep,
yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it must have taken you a while to filter like all the water you needed then.
Yeah, to fill up both of our bladders, and we both brought water bottles each day. It's probably 3 or 4 liters of water per person, and it took a good 15-20 minutes sitting at a creek.
Yeah.
To filter and fill up everything,
Yeah.
And one thing that we really messed up on with the water, since we're on the water topic, is when we first hiked in there, like literally the first night, got all the way back 4 miles, and we were on elk right away the first night, and had an opportunity the first night. Didn't work out, but anyways, we were up on this ridge and decided to just camp on top of the ridge. So that's where we set up our camp, and because it was already set up there, we just came back there every night, and that kind of sucked because you're at the end of the day you're going up the mountain instead of coming down. So one thing that we learned is, like, in the future, set up camp in the bottoms where there's water. For one thing, easy access to water, and second thing is that you don't have to come back up the mountain at the end of the day. You're, instead of coming up the mountain, you're coming down the mountain to camp.
Yeah. And then one thing, and I don't know anything about your setup or where you were, but one thing you want to keep in mind is when you camp high, your thermals generally drop downhill all night long, and the elk generally go downhill at night. So you just want to make sure, like, you're not accidentally blowing out the elk because they're going underneath you in the middle of the night, and then they catch your wind and then bail. A lot of people will be like, they try to camp really close to the elk, and then they're like, yeah, every day it got a little worse and a little worse. So that's just one thing to keep in mind.
I never thought of that. That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it sounds like everything went well. What were you using for a pack to carry? Because that's 5 days worth of stuff. It starts to add up.
Yeah, I've got an EXO, and those things are awesome. Yeah, I love that thing. I think it was, I don't know if I ever weighed it, but I'd say it was right around 40-45 pounds, which, that's pretty decent for 5 days of food and everything, if you ask me. But
yeah, that's not bad. I've had heavier packs for day hunts before, unfortunately, with camera gear and all this stuff.
Gear definitely adds up.
But yeah, my backpacking tent's like 5 pounds, but it's technically a 2-person, and it has its own pole system.
Okay.
Other than that, everything else seems pretty similar to what you had, because me and my wife are going to start backpacking more. So it's like, well, we might as well just buy a 2-person. And it's not the greatest 2-person. Like, it's a tight 2. So, maybe we decide to get a different one. I don't know. But yeah, so you talked a little bit about the water, the lessons you learned there with the water. Talked a little bit about, your Danner boots, and then you upgraded that. But just in general, for your first, like, big elk hunt, backcountry experience, what were your top, these worked well, and your top, these did not go well, we need a new plan for this, coming out of the elk hunt, like, with your experience?
As far as like hunting strategy or gear?
Both, maybe. Yeah, like
Okay.
like which gear worked well, which gear didn't work well, or what did you not have? Like what did you like? Oh shit, we needed this, and then like maybe with your plan, like what did you like about the plan? What would you do different next time about your plan?
Sure. I'd say one thing, we we brought e-bikes thinking that'd be nice to get out to our spots. Um, Found out pretty quick that the trails in Montana are really rocky and not flat. So
Okay.
e-bikes, at least where we were, I'm sure they work in some spots, but e-bikes were not the way to go. But that was one thing. But I guess as far as like the hunting strategy itself, um, yeah, there's a lot of things that I could go into for that because we learned so much, But I think one of the biggest things was we actually spooked a couple nice bulls just walking through the woods, walking through the thick timber in the middle of the day, and um, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of tough when you're doing that type of hunting. Like you can only see 40, 80 yards ahead of you, and when they're not talking, it's like it's pretty easy to spook them. But
Yeah.
I have heard people like a lot of people say you're supposed to throw out some cow calls as you're walking through the woods. Kind of sound like a small herd of elk, which we probably should have done that. But yeah, I mean, and as far as like our actual encounters we had, I don't think we were aggressive enough, honestly. Like the first night, we got into like within 200 yards of this bull that we had going off, and he's with a group of cows, and we just decided to kind of hang back behind this conifer. And if we would have just pushed forward another 100 yards to the next group of trees, I think we could have got a shot at him.
Yeah.
I think we were just a little too timid, just because we didn't really know what we were doing. And my buddy actually, it was funny. My buddy thought these elk were like half a mile away or something. And I was telling him like, dude, I think they're a lot closer than you think. And all of a sudden, yeah, giant 6x6 steps out at 200 yards and picked us off. But
Yeah, well, I've been telling myself I feel like I've been too timid for 8 years in a row. So I've been
yeah,
every year I'm like, I need to get more aggressive, and I do get more aggressive, and it's just like, yeah, like I think you hear an elk, you go, you make your plan, you don't dilly dally. So often they're gone. You set up, they never come in. I think you really gotta press. I'd
yeah.
rather get too close and blow them a couple times, but obviously if you got elk, then oh, let's set up and hopefully they come our way, and then you go the whole week and you never know what happened.
Right, and I think, I mean, what we didn't realize is their eyesight isn't as good as whitetails, right? I mean,
I
they
don't know
can't
if it's
see.
not as good or they're just not as concerned. But you
Yeah.
can get away a little bit with visual. Now, if they pick you out walking through like some open ground, that ain't good. But
Right.
like drawing, moving, leaning, like taking one step, moving slow, trying to get a little bit low underneath the brush. You can get away with more, for sure more. Their hearing is phenomenal. Their scent is phenomenal. Their sight, I just don't think they rely on it as much. I think that'd be probably the better
Yeah.
way to put it, is like if they smell you, it's over. If they, hear you, it's not good. But if they see you, hearing and seeing, they're big animals, man. Like there's only so much that can hurt them. And I think like visually, it's just one of their like, there's something over there, whatever. It's in the woods. Like there's things all over the place.
Yep, definitely. And I think like the other thing that we messed up on, we the one day we were after a bull basically the whole day, and finally got in close in the afternoon, and we were calling above him, and he was raking like crazy, and he just didn't want to come up the mountain to us.
Yeah.
So we got down onto his level, thinking, well, maybe he'd come in then if we're on the same level, which it actually worked out pretty good. He did come in eventually, but He got to about 40 yards, and my buddy let out like a couple cow calls, and right away the bull picked him out, and just kind of turned around slowly and just went back the other way. And so we learned not to do that.
Yeah, you can get windowed for sure. Like have you heard of the window principle?
No.
Okay, so imagine you're in like your living room, right? And you got some windows around. If you start calling, what that elk's going to do is he's going to walk up to your house and he's just going to poke his nose in that window, because that's the first opportunity he's going to have to see what's making the noise. And if there's not an elk when he pops his head in that window in your living room, he's not going to come in through. He's not going to jump through the window, right? He's just going to peek his nose in, or he's just going to look. And so when you're in that thick stuff, that window can be 10 feet. I mean, it literally can be as little as 10 feet. But if you're in like the sage flats, that window could be 400 yards, because he can look over there and be like, there's not an elk over there. I don't know what's making that noise, but it's not an elk, and they will not come any farther. So a lot of times that's why you want the caller to be, right on that edge of the window. So like as far out as he can just barely see the shooter anymore, so you can still do hand signals and stuff. But sometimes that's 40 yards, and then the window extends, for the shooter, another 40 yards. So basically by that time that bull sticks his nose in the window and tries to figure out what's making the noise, in other words, the caller, he's walking past the shooter to get there, right? And so I don't know what your situation was, but yeah, if he can see everything and you try to call and he's like, there's not been an elk here, and now there's something making elk noises, they hang up. It's called getting windowed, in another way to put it. And it never usually goes well for us either. If they can see you calling, it's maybe like last ditch effort, maybe to get him to stop. If he's coming in too fast and you just need him to stop so you can shoot your bow, you can do like a nervous grunt or something, and then you'll stop him in his tracks, because he wasn't aware of an elk there, and all of a sudden he heard one, and he just kind of startles. But yeah, that's one thing you want to keep in mind too. And it can depend all on your habitat. How thick is it? We hunt some places where you can see 150 yards in the timber, and so your collar's got to be back a ways.
So do you guys usually set up with? I guess it really depends on like what type of terrain you're hunting. But say you're in like thick timber, like we were in, where you can really only shoot 20 to 40 yards ahead of you. Would you usually set up a collar behind the shooter? Because what we did is we just kind of went in together on the same line, and my buddy was calling and I was kind of next to him 20 yards down the mountain.
Typically we'd always have a collar shooter. Now sometimes when things aren't just working and we're just like, let's just do a cow party, we're just going to sit for like an hour and a half and make like sporadic cow calls, maybe eat a sandwich, then we'll kind of spread out and both kind of be shooters. But if there's like a specific bull that's going off and we're within 200 yards or 100 yards, we'll have one shooter, one caller, or hopefully more shooters, but try to always have that one caller back. And we try to have the collar back like as far as you can see as the shooter. Like if you can see 100 yards in every direction, the collar's got to be 100 yards away from you. Because if he's 10 yards behind you, that bull's going to come in to 90 because he can see 100, so he can see the collar now, and he's too far away. So the collar has to know how far back do I need to be to get this bull to come in. 20 to 40 yards is almost nice, because then that collar can stay close and can really guide that bull in, because that bull's probably going to come, as soon as I say something, somebody will comment that they had the opposite experience, but typically that bull's going to come in on the downwind shade side. So like if you have a left to right wind, right, you're out front as the caller or the shooter, I'm behind you, 40 yards behind you as the caller, that bull's probably going to come in 30 yards to the right. He's going to try to catch that scent of the caller, and so he's going to probably walk by to the right. So the shooter might want to be up 30 yards and like 10 yards to the right to be a little bit on the favor of that downwind side. Now if that's a cliff, he probably ain't going to come in there. Like the ground can always tell, can always have an influence. But yeah, you can play all kinds of games with that then, because then if the bull's coming in too far downhill, then the collar can go uphill and pull him back up to the shooter, or vice versa. Sometimes they do come in blind. Like sometimes you get a raghorn that comes in silent from behind, and all of a sudden that's where it's nice to have eye contact. So all of a sudden you're like, hey, my buddy, quit calling. What's up? You turn around and he's like knocked and facing the other direction. You can be like, oh crap, he might have a bull on him, and now you just know, like, oh, now I'm the caller.
Yep, exactly.
So yeah, but anything, I mean, people shoot them all the time by themselves. So a lot of strategies will work. One that we found that does not work is if the bull can see what's making the noise and it doesn't look like an elk, they'll stop coming in.
Oh yeah, we found that out.
So yeah, no, there's a lot of ways you can do it, man. That's the best part about elk hunting.
Yeah, my buddy felt bad. Like he thought he ruined it, and I was like, no. I mean, I was just happy that we got to 40 yards of I think it was like a 5x5, you know, and our first archery elk hunt. That was all I could ask for.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to get you back on the podcast after your next archery elk hunt and see, get another update.
Heck yeah, yeah. I'm hoping we'll get down some more elk next year again. It was a pretty sweet experience this year.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you being here and telling your story. Obviously, looking forward to hearing all the updates. But give the listeners a chance to follow along and join you on some of your adventures before we sign off.
Yeah, sure. You can follow Project Whitetail. We've got basically everything: Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It's Project Whitetail Official.
Awesome.
That's the username.
You'll have to come out with an update like Project Elk.
That's funny you say that, because that was one of the ideas my buddy had. Oh, maybe we should do Project Antelope and Project Elk.
Yeah, it's a lot to manage though too, so that's fine. Awesome. Well, we'll put a link everywhere in the show notes to the pages, so followers or listeners can click the links and follow along. But thank you for being here, Ian, and thank you for listening, folks.